Well, my name is Edwin Meelhuysen. I am a physical therapist. 34 years now I've been doing this, and I'm also the Director of Rehabilitation and Community Wellness at Arbor Health. And I want to talk to you today about the tortoise that won a race. You know, most of us when we're younger, we think about getting old. This might be our vision of what our older years are going to be like, right? We're going to get older, and we're going to get older gracefully, or maybe like Jim at 89 there, one of the oldest bodybuilders, or like Ida there, who's 100 and is a world record holder. We think that that's what oftentimes we might be like. Or maybe more realistic to our community here, we could look at Dale here, who at 82 was the oldest person to finish the entire Appalachian Trail until about a year ago when he was, or 2 years ago, when an 83-year-old did it. And so Dale's, I believe his nickname on the trail was Graybeard, and I forget the guy who just beat him, but he had much longer gray hair, and it was, he just passed. Or this other guy over here hunting. Many of us might think of that as what we're going to be as we age. We just expect that. We think it comes naturally. But unfortunately, for many of us, this is what ends up happening, and we wonder why. You know, we end up maybe not being able to be as mobile as we would like to be, or maybe we become bedbound, and these are things that we don't expect. We never think about this when we're younger. And so we want to know the question, what makes the difference? Well, first of all, I want to kind of just get rid of the outliers, if you will. Let's remove the events, the tragic life events that happen, because there is trauma. I used to work in a big trauma center, and people's lives were changed in an instant with trauma and accidents and horrible things, right? We also have diseases that hit us. You know, we get people who just all of a sudden they come down with Lou Gehrig's disease or something like that. And that's not who we're talking about here today, okay? We're talking about most of us that are just average people. What makes the difference? Well, in general, it's lifestyle. A big part of which is a lifestyle of being active. That's what we're going to talk about today. So if we want to define this, if we ask dictionary.com, back in the day it was just Webster's, right? We'd go to the books, but now it's dictionary.com. What is lifestyle? It would define it as the way in which a person or a group lives. Or, you know, we talk about people's lifestyles, a set of attitudes, and I underline this, or habits, right, that are associated with a particular person or a group. And if we look at the word active, well, they define it as engaging or ready to engage in physically energetic pursuits. So, put them together, an active lifestyle is a habit or attitude, a way we live in which we are engaging or ready to engage in physically energetic pursuits. So, why do we stop exercise? Well, remember Ken Cooper? Some of you guys might remember him from the day, right? He said we don't stop exercising because we grow old. We grow old because we stop exercising. Or maybe more modern people would remember, know the celebrity trainer Tony Horton of P90X fame, right? He says aging is for people who just don't know any better, right? Well, y'all remember Aesop's fable and the story of the tortoise and the hare? The tortoise and the hare are having a conversation, and they can't figure out why the hare is just kind of giving him a little grief. And the tortoise is like, you know what, I get there. And so they decide to have a race. And as soon as the race starts, the hare takes off running, right? And he just can't understand why the tortoise would even want to race with him. So he's so far ahead, he decides to do what? Take a nap, right? He just figures he's going to take a rest, but before long he finds out he was actually asleep from a deep sleep. He wakes up just in time to see the tortoise inches from the finish line, right? There you go. See, you guys know the story. I figured you did. Anyway, so he jumps up, he takes off, but it's too late. So what are some lessons that we can learn from this story? I tell this story to my patients all the time, and they know about it, right? But I always tell them that the tortoise won the race. So what can we learn? So let's look at some characteristics. In the story, the tortoise, he didn't start out very fast, did he? Nope. And he didn't stop. He just kept on going. But he also knew that he would make his goal. So how can this translate into our lives of activity and exercise? Well, I'm going to use a few colloquialisms because we just talked about a story, right? So Rome wasn't built in a day. You've heard that before? So keep your expectations realistic. Second of all, once you choose to become more active, make it a part of your lifestyle, not a limited time engagement, like your movies here. Right? All right, so the other thing that is important is to keep this in mind, these other things in mind, and you will succeed. Keep those things in mind, and you will succeed. So what were the characteristics of the hare? Well, in the story, he started out really fast and strong. He decided to reward himself because he was so far ahead with a nap. And by the time he woke up, it was too late. And the tortoise won the race. So how does that relate to you? So some of you guys might get this, and some of you might not. But yo-yo anything is not a great thing unless you're Tommy Smothers from the Smothers Brothers. Right? See, I figured some of you might remember that. So remember, the older you get, the less your body tolerates starts and stops. It doesn't tolerate it well. When we think we are doing well and decide to reward ourselves, it often leads to negative consequences. How often do we reward ourselves for doing something? I just rode my bike 10 miles, so I'm going to eat an entire pizza. Right? We reward ourselves. By the time many of us figure this out, it just could be too late. And that's what we don't want. So, how do I become a tortoise as it relates to activity and exercise? Well, let's talk about that briefly. Well, no matter where you are in life, you got to start the race for the long haul. Number 2, start slowly and build. This gives your body time to accommodate and grow while decreasing the risk for injury. Not to mention, it's more mentally sustainable. Okay? And then don't stop. If you treat health and fitness like a destination, you will continually reward yourself for just living life. And then remember that as you grow older, it is harder to regain what is lost, and what you have gets lost faster. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I mean, for me, the difference between 30 and 40 was big, and the difference between 40 and 50 was huge. And I'm not that far from 60, and so it's getting scarier. All right. And here's the last part. Be intelligent about what you do. You are an individual. Everyone starting fitness is not the same. So don't try to just fit yourself into a cookbook. It was great for my business. I used to get a lot of patients that would read an article about running a marathon in a year. And they hadn't run for 30 years. And they ended up in my clinic. And a lot of times it was because they just went too fast. They were not in the right place. Now, if a person had been running for a year or 2 or 3 and they had a good base and they did that, great. It worked out really well for most of them, but these are the things that you need to be aware of. So here's some basic facts about strengthening and aging. As you get older, it's hard to gain muscle mass and strength. We know that. As you get older, you may require more recovery time. No. You will require more recovery time. That's just a fact. Because of 1 and 2, we might get impatient with slow results. So, I had a conversation years ago with a patient. This was when I was younger, and but not that young. I was old enough to have a son-in-law, Let's put it that way. And he said, do you want to come play football with us? And I said, of course. And so I went out and played football, and I think to myself, there's no reason in the world why I can't play football. It's flag football. And I did. And I did just fine. I would never have been as fast as he is because he's really fast. But I kept up just fine with the group, and I wasn't a real, what do you call it, a weight on the team. I did just fine until the next day. And the next day, and the next day, and for 2 weeks I really had a hard time moving. Now, mind you, I was fairly fit. I played basketball once a week. I was riding my bike to work. I was doing a lot of these things. I was going to the gym. But that's just part of those changes, those slow results, those different parts. And so I talked to a patient of mine. I said, he was probably in his 60s and very active. I said, do you think in your mind that you should be able to do anything that you ever did? He said, oh, yeah, all the time. I just have to tell myself it's not a good idea. So, and you know what I'm talking about. So we can't get impatient. We really can't. We have to be wise, but we also need to realize it's going to take some time. Older people might have some challenges that a young person does not have. I just explained that, right? Express that. We get over things. They get over things a little bit faster. But here's the kicker. None of this means squat, pun intended. Okay? Apply the wisdom of your age and become a tortoise. All right? I like the t-shirt that says, I didn't get this old because I'm stupid. Right? I mean, it's one thing. So apply it. And you can do all these things. Don't let any of that tell you you can't do what you want to do. And now let's talk about 3 types of exercise, right? This is a question mark. These are 3 types of exercise, right? We have cardiovascular endurance. We have strength training. And then we have flexibility, right? Right. Okay, let's reword this a little bit. I think this is important, okay? Because I think you want to do exercise that allows you to do the activities that you want to do for as long as you want to do them safely, efficiently, and fluidly. This means that our activities should improve our strength, our balance, our endurance, and our agility through a full range of motion. That's really important. And what you may not understand is that when we look at a full range of motion, that's how our joints get nutrition, because they get our nutrition through a process called, right? Y'all heard that before? No. It's called imbibition, but I know, right? So this is, as you move and you take your joint to that full range of motion, the joint gets tight. And all the fluid nutrition around that joint gets squished into the cartilage, and then as it releases, it squishes out and squishes back in. We call it habituation. See all these big terms, right? But it's just easier to go, right? So what happens is that's why you need that full range of motion. So if you're sitting on your butt all the time, your hips never get the full range of motion they need, and then you end up with problems. That's why hip sitting is the worst thing in the world for your hips. Get up, move around on a regular basis. Okay, so where do I start? I've convinced you, I'm sure. Well, I don't really know. Because you're you, and we're not all the same. I'm going to flash something on the screen because, well, first of all, I got to throw this disclaimer out because there are attorneys out there. You might need to check with your doctor to make sure that you are safe. What's the thing that they say? This isn't designed to cure, treat, or prevent any diseases, so, whatever it may be, check. Anyway, you know all those things. So check with your doctor because it is important if you're older. You want to make sure that you don't have any other underlying issues that could be a problem. But that aside, most everyone, and we used to work with some people who were really sick. I worked in a big preventive medicine lifestyle center a number of years ago. And, under medical care, you can take some very, very sick people and you can get them moving. So, but this is a lot of information. The point of this slide is to let you know there is a ton of stuff online if you go to the right places. So Enhanced Fitness, we offer that at our hospital. You can go there. National Institute on Aging has a lot of good information. Centers for Disease Control, Silver Sneakers. All these are places, and you can reach out to me if you don't know how to start from that standpoint. How do you check your baseline? Just start, but if you can't, just start moving. Just start moving by walking. Walk to get your mail. Park farther away. Things that we can do to just move a little bit better. But here's the part that's important. Just remember, be the tortoise. All right? Keep your expectations reasonable. Start slowly and build. Make it your lifestyle, not a goal. Once you start, don't stop, ever. And if that's the case, maybe you could be like, I'm going to read these because they're a little bit easier and they sound better. Maybe you could be like Chef Babette. She's here. She's the co-owner of a vegan restaurant called Stuff I Eat, and she's 67 here. She's older than the invention of AstroTurf, older than the existence of human aerospace travel, and older than Alaska, at least the statehood of Alaska. And she could do 65 push-ups in a row, but she wasn't always like this, she said. It wasn't until she met her husband in 1990 that she left a lifestyle of poor eating and inactivity behind, and she took up running and a vegan lifestyle, which helped clear her lifelong ailments of eczema and asthma. Now she is active as a hands-on chef at a restaurant, runs regularly, and does workouts on a regular basis. That's 67. Or you could be like Mark Vazana. He's 63. He adopted a healthy lifestyle later in life also. He was 45 when he decided to quit a 30-year smoking habit, join a gym, and start eating right. Now, while most people, he said, fear such a massive change, his perspective was different. He said, I knew if in order to quit smoking, I needed to change everything in my life. And so he did. And at 56, he took up CrossFit. Looks pretty good there. And though he recently cut back on the heavier lifting, he mostly focuses on body weight exercise. And he said what keeps him motivated is staying fit and healthy. It's important so he can take care of his family, run his business, and inspire others to not let age discourage them. Or there is Cheryl Cherry. Now this one you might be able to relate to a little bit better, right? She's a gold medal cyclist from the National Senior Games, and she did her best to stay active and young and healthy as a young adult. But she hung up her running shoes at 40 due to persistent knee pain and then had the knee replacement in 2005. In 2011, at the age of 62, she underwent a great awakening during a vacation in which she struggled to play with and pick up her infant grandson. It was then she decided it was time to do something to get her life under control. So she and her husband started TRX training because their son knew about that, encouraged them to do so, and eventually she got into cycling. It took a long time, but Cheryl lost 50 pounds, and after just 4 years of hard work, she competed in 2015 at the National Senior Games, where she took the gold medal in the 10K, 10,000 meter time trial, and the silver in the 5K on a bike, and set numerous records. And these days she works out all the time because she is an elite. Or you can look, if you may have seen this before, but I'm going to share this because I think this is really cool. So she's 96. Her name's Johanna, and she's by Guinness Book of World Records certified as the oldest active gymnast. She doesn't have a problem falling. So what's her secret? She says, if you are fit, it's easier to master life. And when there's movement, there is life. So she says, what are you waiting for? So, you know what? These are stories that are pretty huge and pretty big, and maybe you can't relate to them. Maybe the bar, pun intended, seems too high. Actually, it wasn't intended until I saw it today. But I'm just going to tell you, you just got to start. Because that's what Sherry did. And it doesn't matter at what level you are, we can always stay more active. We can always do better in many ways. And a lot of people say, well, I like my life. I don't want to give up this. I don't want to give up that. And the answer is for most of these people is once they do, they don't ever want to go back. So, who won the race of life? I want to be a tortoise. I don't need to be fast. I just want to keep moving. What about y'all?